So yeah, today I want to talk to you just about making a competitive application to Oxford or Cambridge. I should add that nearly everything that I'm going to talk about is applicable to the Oxford process, but just to save me having to say and Oxford all the time, when I say Cambridge, just substitute Oxbridge or substitute and Oxford. And I apologise, that is the dog just barking now. I apologise for that. Just give Heidi a moment. Sorry, everyone. The University of Cambridge, we were founded in 1209, so we're the fourth oldest surviving university in the world. A real sense of history when you walk around, and a real sense of academic tradition. I'm just going to go and have to stop the dog barking. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry, everyone, a bit of drama there. We're one of the best universities in the world, and students come from across the UK and across the world as well. So it's a really cosmopolitan global environment to study in. As I'm sure you know, or you're interested in law, but we offer 30 courses, and within each course, there is a real range of options across all degrees. And I will go a bit more in depth about the options available to you as a lawyer a little bit later on. We're a small university, so we only take about 3,500 students a year. A large university can take 3 times the number of that per year. The main reason for why, or there are 2 main reasons why we offer so few places. The first one is the supervision system, and I will talk about that a bit more in a second. But the other reason is to do with accommodation. So every Cambridge college will guarantee you a student bedroom for the entire length of your degree. So as a lawyer, for most of you, it'll be 3 years. So you'll always have a room in your college. So because of that, there is a limited number of bedrooms available to all the colleges. So that limits the number of places that we can offer each year. And the other thing to say about Cambridge, just as an overview, is that we are a collegiate university. There are 3 types of university in the UK. There is a campus university. Warwick would be a very good example of a campus university. That's where everything you would need as a student, all the facilities, all the teaching rooms, all the accommodation, etc., they are all on one geographically defined zone, okay, the campus. You've got a city university. A good example of that might be Queen's in Belfast or one of the London ones. That's where you've got sort of a central hub of university buildings, but then accommodation, other teaching rooms, other facilities are spread out through a city. So you have to sort of travel between each sort of set of buildings. And then you've got, like I said, a collegiate university, of which Oxford and Cambridge would be the foremost examples of them. What does that mean? Well, you have the colleges, Corpus Christi being one of the colleges, and there are another 28 colleges here at Cambridge. You've got the colleges come together with the departments, so Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Mathematics, Faculty of Law, and they come together to make the university. And the way to think about what a college is it's really your home away from home. So it's where you will live. And the vast majority of Cambridge students, I would approximately guess that 95% of all Cambridge students always choose to live in their college accommodation. It's where you'll do the vast majority of your socializing. It's where you'll get involved with a lot of the extracurricular activities available to you. So sports teams, student council, which we call JCR, or the JCR committee, performing arts, music. You might sing in a college choir, and you might get involved in a college sort of chamber orchestra or a music society. Corpus has things like a climbing society. There is a knitting society. The list goes on and on and on, but most people will do the majority of their extracurricular activities within the college. And it's where you have some of your teaching. So some people worry that depending the choice of their college, does it affect the option papers that they can choose? Does it affect their degree? Well, not at all. So if the college academic in law, and you have met Dr. Morgan this morning, if you pick an option paper taught by Dr. Morgan, then you will be taught by Dr. Morgan in college. If you happen to pick an option paper taught by someone at St. Catherine's, or someone at Emmanuel, or someone at King's, or someone at Trinity, you go to them. So your choice of college does not affect your degree or your academic progression to your degree at all. And the colleges are really what makes the Cambridge and Oxford experience unique. They, I think, really are certainly my own experience. I went to Oxford a long time ago, but I love my college, and it really does, I think, set apart the Cambridge experience or the Cambridge University experience compared to other places. And they provide a lot of support. So there's academic support. Every lawyer will have a director of studies. A director of studies is responsible for sort of overseeing your academic progression through your degree. They would be the person who you would approach if you are having any problem at all with your academic studies, whatever that might be. And then in addition to that sort of support, I should mention that you also have supervisions, and this may have been talked about earlier, but a supervision where it would be you, probably one other student, and the academics, so someone like Dr. Morgan or Dr. Gillis, who you're going to meet later on. And you'll be talking, you'll be discussing, you'll be working through your ideas about law or your ideas about whatever legal problem you've been set that week. And it's really, it's sort of quite intense, but it's an amazing privilege to have that sort of close contact with the academics who are all leading experts in their field. There's a large amount of welfare support. So every college has a nurse, trained mental health professionals. Every college has a welfare committee. Every college has undergraduate welfare reps. Every student has a personal tutor at Cambridge. A personal tutor would be an academic, a fellow based in your college, who would be there to help you with any other problem which isn't academic. So that ranges from feeling a little bit homesick right through to, you know, I've run out of money, how do I pay my rent? You would go and talk to your personal tutor, which leads me nicely onto financial. Certainly one of the ways that I benefited the most in my collegiate experience was the financial support available to you through the colleges. Cambridge and the University of Cambridge and the colleges run something called the Cambridge Bursary Scheme. If you are eligible for that, there's a sliding scale, but eligibility starts if you have a combined household income of under £62,500 a year. You can receive up to £4,500 a year as a bursary, so it's free, you don't pay it back. And then colleges all have additional top-up funds or sort of specific grants available to you. So, for example, at Corpus, there is an IT fund if you need a new laptop, for example, or a tablet. There is a sporting equipment fund. There is an international travel grant fund. There's also a general student support fund that you can apply to. So all the colleges, and Corpus is no different to that, all the colleges are committed to not allowing a student's financial background to limit their ability to have an enriching or the full sort of Cambridge experience, I should say. There are lots of ways to work out what college you might want to apply to, and I should add there, you do apply to the college, you don't apply to the University of Cambridge. If you choose it, you can make an open application, but I would encourage you all to pick a college and you apply directly to that college. How do you decide between them? Like I said, there are 29. Well, some are old, some are new, some are a lot bigger, some are a lot smaller, some are right in the middle of town, and some are sort of 15-minute cycle ride from the center of the city. There's lots of variety, and I'm sure all of you will be able to find somewhere which you would feel most comfortable at. A little bit about Corpus. We're the 6th oldest Cambridge college. We were founded in 1352. We are unique amongst the Cambridge and Oxford colleges for being founded by ordinary people. So the townspeople of Cambridge came together to establish Corpus Christi for themselves, whereas every other college relies on one basically very rich benefactor, so prince, bishop, king, nobleman, etc. We're a small college, so we only take between 94 and 96 students per year. For context, some of the biggest colleges can take 170, 180 students a year. I went to a small college when I went to Oxford. That's very much what I was after that very sort of close-knit, friendly undergraduate community. I liked the fact that certainly at Corpus, you basically know everyone in your year, but you'll also know people in the year above, and you'll know people 2 years above you. And then when you're a third year, you'll know people in the second year and the first year. It's easier to do that in a small-sized college. And I think we've got some amazing law academics here at Corpus. So we've got Dr. Jonathan Morgan, who obviously you met earlier and you're about to meet, Dr. Matilda Gillis, who specializes in human rights law, immigration law, and international law. And interestingly, she also worked as a constitutional law solicitor for the Australian government. And then we also have Dr. Andrew Sanger, who you won't meet today. He's currently on sabbatical, he's on academic leave, but he's interested in international law and global governance. And I should just add as well that you cannot get more central than Corpus. We are right in the middle of town. I would have thought if you put a dot in the middle of Cambridge, yeah, well, I know Corpus is the closest college to that. So if you don't want to have to be cycling everywhere and you fancy everywhere just being sort of a 10-minute walk away, you should come join us at Corpus. The application process. So I just want to just dwell on this for a second. Obviously, choose your course. So most of you, if not all of you, are going to probably be lawyers. Great. You then should do some research on your college or whether to make an open application. Now, in terms of your chances of getting in, it makes no difference between choosing a college or just saying, you know what, I can't make a choice. I will let a central algorithm just assign me to a college. I think one of the funnest parts of the application process is doing the research on the colleges and sort of just finding out or getting excited about this college that you would want to apply to and spend 3 years at. So I'd encourage you all to choose a college. You're going to have to check your admission arrangements, and for law we have the LNAT, and I will talk about more about that at a later slide. And then the crucial thing that I'm sure most of you know, but it's worth just going over again, is that you have to have everything ready early. So the deadline for the UCAS application this year, if you are applying to Cambridge, is Monday, the 16th of October. And this is part of the reason why we're talking to you now about the application process, is to make sure you've got plenty of time to put together a strong application. Now, once you've submitted everything through UCAS, so your personal statement, your academic track record, your predicted grades, and your teacher reference, you'll then have to fill out another form for us, and it's called My Cambridge Application. Nothing scary in there. It's just a little bit more information about things like what modules are you taking or what modules have you taken. There's also an optional personal statement box, so we allow you to submit another 1,000 characters. So if there was something specifically about Cambridge that you want to reference, talk about the way we teach or talk about a part of the law course, that would be the obvious place to do it. You then, in mid-October, you will have actually taken your entrance exam or your pre-interview assessment way before this, the LNAT. And for law at the moment at Corpus, we don't ask for any submitted written work. And then the thing that I think nearly everybody knows about the Cambridge application process, about Cambridge admissions, is that we have interviews. Now, the interviews will be conducted in December, so first 2 weeks of December. And again, I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a second. And then we let everyone know by the end of January about whether we're going to make you an offer to study. Part of the reason why we make that decision, or why there's such a gap between the interviews and the decisions, is that we have something called the winter pool system. The winter pool system, I'm sure we'll get lots of questions about this, so I will try to do my best to explain it now. The winter pool system enables you essentially a second bite of the cherry to be made an offer to study. So let's say you apply to Corpus, and unfortunately, there were 7 stronger law candidates than you. So you were the 8th best one. And we would probably only offer up to about 7 places for law. So that 8th, if we still thought you were good enough to come study law at Cambridge, but we couldn't offer you a place, like I said, unfortunately, there's some students who are better than you, we can put you and your application and everything you've given us, your LNAT scores, your personal statement, teacher reference, your interview reports, everything that you have done for us goes into the pool, and every other college can therefore then review your application. So if there's a college which has had, let's say, a weaker year, you might stand a chance of getting pulled out of the pool. Or let's just say that something about your application, someone just really, really likes something, they think, well, Corpus have been stupid to put them in the pool, we will definitely take them out. So then you'd be made an offer to study from a different college to the one you've applied for. Now, hopefully I've explained that. I'm sure I've done a pretty bad job. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of the law course. And if you were interested in seeing this in more detail, that is the law faculty website for Cambridge, just up there in the pink box. That's got some really in-depth bits about what exactly are you going to study with each of these module papers. But in the first year, what we call Part 1A, you'll take 4 papers. There is no choice. So every lawyer does Civil Law 1, Constitutional Law, Criminal Law, Law of Tort, plus a half paper on legal skills and methodology. So there is no choice in first year. Every lawyer in Cambridge does those sort of 4.5 papers. Then in your second year, what we call Part 1B, you will have to study a paper on land law, and you'll have to study a paper on contract law, but then you'll have 3 options from a wide range. I've put some examples there that you could choose to pick. And again, it's free pick. You can choose whatever ones you want for those additional 3 papers. Then in third year, what we call Part 2, you have to do equity and you have to do EU law, but then you have 3 options to pick from. And again, there is a wide range of option choices, and there's no restrictions on what you can pick. And I should just add that as one of your option papers, you can choose to take 2 half papers. And again, there are some options there which you might find interesting. And again, there's no forbidden combinations of option papers. And then lastly, you can also take a seminar class, which will then result in you writing a dissertation. And again, there's some options there. So again, once you get out of first year, there's a lot of freedom to sort of put together a law course that you would be most interested in. And I should add here as well that law at Cambridge, you do have the option of doing a study year abroad. The law faculty is partnered with 7 law faculties at other universities in other countries. You can go to Utrecht in the Netherlands, you can go to Poitiers in France, you can go to Regensburg in Germany, you can go to Auckland in New Zealand, you can go to Stellenbosch in South Africa, you can go to Singapore, and you can also go to Barcelona. And one of the undergrads who you spoke to today, Nivi, who is part of the undergraduate Q&A, she'll be going to Utrecht as part of her year abroad. I should add as well, that's a competitive process. Not everyone is guaranteed a year abroad, but everyone can apply to go on it. And if you did do your year abroad, your part 2, your 3rd year, you'd actually be doing that in your 4th year, if that makes sense. Now, the LNAT. So every college will make you sit the LNAT, and you'll also have to do that for Oxford as well. And this is very important that the deadlines for this are different to basically every other pre-interview assessment entrance exam that Oxford and Cambridge make you take. So you can register and book your test at any point between the 1st of August and the 15th of September, but you have to make sure you take that exam before the 16th of October, okay? If you sit the LNAT after the 16th of October, your application to Cambridge will be cancelled, okay? So you have to do that before the 16th of October, okay? So everyone who's thinking of applying, make a note of those dates immediately. It's 135 minutes long, split into 2 sections. One's multiple choice, one's essay question based, and there's some examples of some essay based questions. There is lots online. I would strongly suggest to go online and help you prepare. But in addition to that, you should all be reading a newspaper, keep up to date on current legal stories, current legal issues, and keep track of any interesting ideas, stories, themes that you come across in your wider reading, and think about how they link to the study of law. That is really and truly the best way to start preparing for that. And you also don't have to start doing, past papers now. That can be very much a task in your summer once you've got your test slot booked. The interviews, I won't spend too long on this. Essentially, interviews are trying to find out 2 things. How do you think? And how do you approach to something, or how do you cope with something new? Okay, so all of the discussion is based around sort of trying to uncover your process of thinking and how you try and solve a legal issue or a legal problem, or how you discuss a legal issue or a legal problem. And for the vast majority of colleges, the vast majority of interviews, you'll have at least one bit of pre-reading to do before an interview, which then the interview will be based off that pre-reading. And then in the other interview, you're likely to have a discussion of something that you have mentioned in your personal statement, so something you might have mentioned about your super-curricular study, or something about your more general interest in law, or possibly a more broader legal issue or problem. There is lots online. I would strongly recommend that you only look at official interview resources. There are lots of things out there of students talking about their interview. Students are terrible at remembering exactly what happened in their interview, so please do stick to the official things. So what do we look for? Well, the part of the reason why we have that drawn out admissions process is because we're a very, very competitive university. So we have around about 20,000 applicants for those 3,500 offers across all subjects. And the admissions process is designed, and it works, to help us find students who have genuine enthusiasm for the study of their subject, motivation for independent study, and ultimately motivation for a bit of hard work, and also crucially looking for academic potential. And I should add that all decisions are holistic, so we don't prioritize one part of the application process. We look at everything taken together when we're making a decision on whether to invite you to interview or whether we're making a decision on to offer you a place. We try and look at everything you've given us to make a well-rounded assessment of your academic potential. And we contextualize every application. There's 3 ways we like to do that. We look at your educational journey, we look at your socioeconomic background, and we try and take into account any personal circumstances if you have told us about them, either in either My Cambridge application or your teacher reference or an extenuating circumstances form. But we can obviously only take them into account if we know about them. Now, a key part of working out those students or finding those students, and a key way that you'll demonstrate your enthusiasm, your motivation, and your academic potential is something called super-curricular study. Now, I'm sure some people have heard about that before, but it's academic engagement that goes above and beyond your current syllabus level and which is independently explored. Okay, so basically, are you working with academic resources and materials which are not your A levels and which you are not being taught? That is essentially what super-curricular study, and it's the backbone of any application to any competitive university. It's not just for Oxford and Cambridge. And I should add as well that it will make you better students overall. If you're independently working with things that stretch and challenge you, you will become a better student. Everything will become easier. So your A levels will become easier, and anything that's going to make your A levels easier means you have to work less at them, is to be encouraged. Now, a good starting point, you've got essentially what, 6 months, 7 months before you'd have to make an application to Cambridge. We should plan really, you should think about how you're going to use this time now on top of how you're going to manage your own workload and on top of making sure that you have a life and you do other things, which isn't just study and do your A levels. So you should have a plan about what super-curricular resources you want to use, but also you should be flexible. If you suddenly find a topic of interest, which you get really enthusiastic and passionate about, which you had not realized you were interested in, then that's to be encouraged. You should pursue those specialist academic interests that you might have in law. Now, I would strongly encourage you all to keep a super-curricular workbook. I recommend this to hundreds, if not thousands of students every year. I reckon about 7 people have done it, but it is vitally important that you have something where you can keep a track of what you've worked on, what your ideas are about it, how it links to other things you've studied, what you can tease out from a certain resource that's going to help you with your application for law or help you with your legal understanding. This workbook is absolutely key. I hope all of you are sitting there with a bit of paper or sitting there with a Word document open or OneNote or Pages or whatever sort of word processing software you use, and you should be making notes on what I'm talking about, what Dr. Morgan has talked to you about, what Dr. Gillis is going to talk to you about, just because when you come to write your personal statement over the summer, when you come to sort of prepare for your interview, there is no way you will remember everything that you have done. So the super-curricular workbook is really important. I should add, if you're not enjoying a particular resource, don't force yourself to finish it. It's not your A-level syllabus. There's nothing about this that is prescriptive. You want to spend your time, the vast majority of your time, working on things that you really enjoy reading and learning about. The best students do some every day. The best students have that discipline to make sure that they stick to their plan. And crucially for lawyers, it's important that you read, it's important that you think, but you also need to vocalize your ideas. Perhaps you've got a mate who's also applying for law. Perhaps you've got a teacher who is your A-level law teacher. Perhaps there is a mum or dad who's also interested in legal things, anything, but you should practice talking about your ideas about law, about legal issues, okay? Because in your interview, you're going to have to talk about things. So the more practice you can do about vocalizing your ideas, your arguments, the stronger candidate you're going to be. Now, here are some good examples, and it is in no way at all exhaustive. I could have 20 slides on law super-curriculars, but of course you are in one right now. Masterclasses and academic lectures are fantastic super-curricular resources. There are lots of essay competitions out there. There is just 3 that I've mentioned. Of course, the Robert Walker one, the deadline for that is fast approaching. So possibly if you really want to set yourself a lot of work in the first week of Easter holiday, you could do that. But there are lots and lots out there. They're all Cambridge ones, but there are lots at Oxford as well. There are lots of online resources, and I would particularly actually draw attention to the HE Plus Cambridge website. There are some sort of mini law lectures, there's some resources, there's some questions, there's some sort of discussion materials to get you thinking about, there's criminal law, there's tort law, and there's land law options within the HE Plus sort of website that you could study. And then I would also possibly say of the books, I would recommend the Learning the Law. It's sort of a classic sort of first-year undergraduate textbook, I think that probably every lawyer reads ever. The popularity is attested to by the fact that it's now in its 17th edition. It was published in the early 50s, I think, but I would strongly recommend that you will get that. But crucially, we encourage you to find your own. Again, It's all about you finding the thing that you are most interested to study. And ultimately, what you want to talk about in your personal statement and what you'd be interested in discussing in your interview. Now, when I said plan, this is sort of what I meant. At some point between now, May half term, between now and summer, before you break for summer at the latest, you want to sit down and you want to think about, what have I already worked with? What have I already read? What I've already watched? What I've already listened to? Okay, what have I already participated in? And think about, so they're your supercurriculars that you have already engaged with. And then you want to think about those things as a set, as a group, and you want to think about what themes emerge that you are really interested in, that you want to pursue more, that we could start thinking about that would structure, you could build that into the structure of a personal statement that you'd want to talk more about. And if you looked at those 4 supercurriculars, these 2 themes would appear quite easily. And then you want to spend a little bit of time of researching how you can develop your understanding of these 2 themes. So then you could, for example, spend your summer really sharpening your understanding of those 2 themes. So whilst, of course, we encourage people to read broadly, to read widely, to explore lots of different things, there is no harm in developing particular specialisms. Okay, we don't expect anybody to start the Cambridge Law course and to be experts on civil law, Roman law, tort law, contract law, land law, and equity. You know, that's mad to think that. But we do, it is encouraged, I would say, or I would say it would make you look like a strong candidate if you can develop some specialisms. Okay, and if you're interested in those 2 themes, those 4 supercurricular sort of resources would really help you. The bottom one, which is Winning Arguments by Henriks, that's not necessarily going to help you sort of develop your understanding of human rights law or jurisprudence, but you are lawyers, you are going to make money one day, your profession is going to be winning arguments. And I think that's a really interesting book that talks about how to, you know, really effectively structure arguments, how you can make the most telling argument. I think as lawyers, you would all find that very, very interesting. And come to the open days. So Cambridge is the 6th and 7th of July and Oxford is the 28th, 29th. Just my one bit of advice about the open days is you should come to Cambridge, Oxford with a short list of colleges. Don't try and think I'm going to get around all 29 colleges. You'll A, never do it. You'll never have enough time. And B, I think the students who get the most out of the open days are the ones who have got between 3 or 5 and they leave plenty of time to walk around them, meet students, meet people like me, understand more about the college, and then have time to reflect on, well, hang on, which college did I really enjoy seeing? If you're just trying to go around all of them, you don't really have any time for reflection about which one you really enjoyed. There is the admissions office email down there at the bottom that will go to Naomi. But if you have any questions for us, which we don't get to now, or, you know, in a month's time, in 3 months' time, please use that email address. There's one thing which I just realized I forgot to talk about. If I just jump back here, work experience. Just 2 things I want to say about work experience. It's not necessary. Okay, lots of people do get work experience, but it is not a necessary requirement to make a strong application to Cambridge to study law. And the crucial thing is, if you do have work experience, you don't get a smiley face or a tick, or it doesn't look good just if you describe what you have done. You want to be making sure that you tell me what you have learned from it. You want to be engaging with it and arguably linking it to something academic that you've read. Okay, so it's not enough just to have gone on work experience. You've got to tell me what you learned and how you engaged with it. Okay, that's really important. I should also add here as well, and I will drop the link in the chat in a second. And there is a very, very, very well, famous, most of you have probably heard of it, organization called Prime Commitment. And there is over 60 law firms have signed up to this organization, and that helps you get work experience. Now, some of it is in person, some of it is virtual. There is also eligibility criteria to it, the main one being that you have to go to a state school, and then there are a couple of others. But I will put the link in the chat to where you might find that website. But it's law firms who have offices all over the country, so it's not just like in Bristol or in London or Manchester, it is everywhere. And there are staggered recruitment phases for it. So whilst one law firm close to you might have already had their Prime work experience placement, another law firm might be in the middle of advertising for it. So I will remember to put the link to Prime Commitment in the chat in a second, but that is probably enough of me waffling away for a second. Any questions, Naomi?
Great, thanks so much, James. We've had a few questions come in already, and I know Matilda's going to join us in about 5 minutes, and then she can answer some of the more law-specific ones. So I'll start on the kind of the more general admissions questions. Making an open application or making an application to a college, does that impact your chances at all of whether or not you get in?
Not at all. And in fact, Naomi and I, who'll be processing your application to Corpus, we actually can't tell. There's no like flag on your application saying this person did not choose you. So we don't prioritize people who choose a college, or no admissions office will do that. I just think, and yeah, in the raw statistics, you stand no better chance if you make an open or you choose a college. Like I said, I think it is just a nice part of the application process to work out which college you would feel sort of most be the place you would fit in and you would feel at home.
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree with that. Do you contextualize international applications?
Less so. We would probably be most likely to take into account the personal circumstances the most for international students. Yeah, so we do a little bit. So certainly if an international student fills out an ECF form, extenuating circumstances form, we would, but in terms of sort of the socioeconomic contextualization, the educational journey, that would play less of a role.
Yeah, we don't have things like postcode data for international applicants in the same way as we do for UK applicants. So for UK applicants, it's really important that you use your proper home postcode, and then that's how we contextualize information that way. I suppose we do get information about the school that a student applies to internationally, so we do have that sort of information still. So in that sense, we do have a bit of information, but yeah, I would agree with that. Does it matter where you where you do your essay competition? So does it matter if you do Cambridge essay competition somewhere else? No,
not at all. I would also add it's not necessary to do them at all. So no, I don't want anyone to think like, oh my God, I must enter an essay competition. I also, to be honest, I don't particularly care that much about where you come. It's not like you have to win an essay competition. They're just very powerful ways to get you thinking about what you're interested in, to get you used to making legal arguments. They're very useful sort of scaffolding to build super-curricular study around. So I've basically said, we'll just go off and study anything, which is quite daunting, right? You're 16, 17. Easy for me to say, but you've got to go and do it. So an essay competition is useful just to providing you a little bit of direction to see what you may or may not be interested in.
Yeah, thank you. And a question along a similar vein, how important are webinars for your application in super-curricular?
Again, it's not, there's nothing in, so nothing that we've recommended is something you have to do. So when Naomi and I are reading a personal statement, we don't have a tick box, a sort of a checklist, which you have to have met a certain amount. It doesn't work like that. We just look, again, webinars, masterclasses, academic lectures. You might have heard something in Dr. Morgan's talk earlier. You might hear something in Dr. Gillis's talk in a second and just be like, oh my God, I never realized that I was really interested in, I don't know, the maritime and the flag and, the legal issues surrounding the flag of convenience and why that might exist. And then suddenly you go off and find this area of law which you were incredibly interested about. Well, wonderful. So think about them more as not necessarily, I think with all super-curricular study, a lot of students tend to approach it as collectors. I'm going to collect as many things as possible. Whereas really what Naomi and myself and what Matilda, what Dr. Gillis and Dr. Morgan are interested in is those students who have, whatever they've done, have they engaged with it? Can they tell me something interesting about the super-curricular study they've done? We're not looking for a list. Yeah. Anybody can list. If you list in your personal statement, I read it, I will say, well done, you're a parrot.
Exactly. Do you put any weight on any one part of the application? So somebody's actually said, what do you put the most weight on? But maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that and how we look at an application as a whole.
So we genuinely do try our best to look at everything together. So, I mean, everyone tends to think the interview is the most important thing. Well, it's not, because the interview is, your paper application is actually telling me a different thing about you. Your paper application is for you to tell me what are your interests, your motivations, your passions. Your interview will be testing, how do you think? How do you think about a legal problem? How do you approach an argument? Now, they're two different things, and that's why we have them, because they're both vitally important to helping us understand them.
Exactly. Yeah. We're joined by Dr. Gillis now, I can see. So thank you for joining us. Just going through answering some of the questions at the end of the admissions talk. So I'll pose some to James that are more admissions related and some to you that are a bit more law related. James, again for you, how relevant are GCSEs in your application?
Well, there are no required GCSE grades. So I would also say it's, the GCSEs is, we have a lot of, certainly if you're in the UK, we have a lot of information about your school's performance. So we can sort of see if you're performing in line with the school, if you're performing above your school's average, or if you're performing below your school's average. Now, a lot of students who come to Cambridge do have a very good academic track record, but some have a mixed academic track record. I have a very mixed GCSE track record, and I still went and read history. As long as you've got the predicted grades at A level, I would encourage you to apply and not worry about your GCSE scores.
Yeah, thank you. And another one that I'm going to put to James, do state school applicants have less of an advantage than those who've been privately educated?
To be honest, no. We basically, certainly what Dr. Gillis and Dr. Morgan are interested in finding is like talent. Who's got raw academic potential? And I think one of the, if I can be nerdy about it for a second, one of the wonderful things about the Cambridge and Oxford admissions process is it does provide a pretty level playing field for every single type of applicant. And that's why it's wonderful, because it doesn't matter what school you go to, it doesn't matter what your background is from, you've got the same chance as anybody else. So, and I think, you know, many years have refined it into sort of helping us get to that point. I think, Matilda, you'd agree with that? Yeah, nodding. Good.
Yeah, 100%.
Brilliant. Matilda, I'll put the next one to you. What happens in a law interview?
Okay, so different things, which I know won't help. But a very classic law interview will be, I know the way we do at Corpus is that one interview will have, we'll give you an extract half an hour before the interview starts. And that extract might be from a case, or it'll be some legislation. And pretty much you'll spend that half an hour reading it, trying to understand it, knowing what kind of the key points are. And then pretty much we'll ask you questions about it. We'll lead you through it. We'll get your opinion on it. We just want to know that you've understood the extract and kind of know what's going on really, and can answer questions from it. So it's kind of, as I'd imagine you're doing kind of English class, you know, comprehension skills. Another kind of law interview will be just asking, why do you want to read law? We're interested in why law, why not history? Why not philosophy? Why not politics? We want to know why law. So that's another thing. What interests you about law?
Great, thank you. Question that I think either of you could answer. Maybe we'll start with James and see Matilda's take on it as well. Should you do an EPQ, and does an EPQ have any impact on the application process?
So let's, the second part's easier answer. No, it doesn't have any impact on the application process. Some of you might be aware, but other universities will lower their offer requirements if you do well in your EPQ. We would never do that. And your offer would never include an EPQ grade either. They are useful though, I mean, particularly for anyone who's not studying law. If you make your EPQ about a legal issue or something you're interested in law, then again, similar to how we talked about sort of essay competitions, it's a useful way to structure your super-curricular study.
Matilda, anything to add on that?
No.
Great, I'll put the next one to Matilda. So will referencing a legal book that's popular and used by others lessen your chance of having a standout personal statement?
No, not at all. I think, I mean, I go back to what I said before, it's just if it interests you.
Yeah.
I think it would weaken your personal statement if it comes through that you haven't actually read this book and you just know that a lot of people are mentioning it, but really it wouldn't weaken it at all. It's, I mean, they're popular books for a reason. So.
Exactly. James, a lot of people are asking, does it make a difference whether you do 3 A-levels or 4 A-levels? Are you at an advantage if you do 4?
No, we don't reward people who do 4 or penalise people who do 3. A lot of sixth forms, particularly in England, you can only do 3. So that's part of the reason why. There you go.
Great, easy answer. And the next one should be an easy answer as well. What about extracurricular? We've talked about super-curricular, not extracurricular. Are you disadvantaged if you don't do sport? Do we want to see it in applications?
No, I really don't care about what you've done. If I read your personal statement, or when Dr. Gillis reads your personal statement, neither of us will care if you've played, I don't know, if you've played rugby for Lancashire, or you played cricket for Yorkshire, don't care. Or we want to know about your brain. What I would just add, though, is there are some universities who will care about that. You don't want to have a personal statement completely given over to your super-curricular study. What I would just say is, if you're spending more than 20% of the character limit talking about extracurriculars, that's probably too much. I would whittle it down. I should also say, it's not that Cambridge doesn't care about those sorts of things. And certainly if you come to a Cambridge College or an Oxford College, you will have a huge array of extracurricular things to choose from, more so than probably anywhere else you might end up going to university. It's just with the admissions process, we're trying to work out academic potential, they're not that useful.
Yeah, great. How important are predicted A-level grades? A few people have asked that one.
Well, they are important because you have to make, you have to get the required the A-levels, which is for law be A-star AA.
Yeah. It would be unlikely that we would shortlist for interview if you weren't predicted A-star AA, to be honest. I think there'd have to be something else about your application that gave us very good reason to interview.
And there are very, very few students apply without that being predicted now.
Yeah. So
you do have to be predicted those things.
I'd agree. Matilda, how important is the LNAT score?
So it's new. So colleges are working out how important it is, if I'm being honest. At Corpus, we don't put a huge emphasis on it, or at least we didn't, because we know it's new. We know people are working out how to use it. We do look at it. So I would say, I mean, I know this is not a very helpful answer at all, but it's not completely irrelevant, but it's not the be all and end all. You can still get through and get a place if you don't do well on the LNAT.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I think for Matilda, how do you, as a student at this stage, work out whether you should do a law degree or do another subject and then a law conversion? What are the kind of the pros and cons of both of those, and how would you say, yes, this student should be doing an undergraduate law degree?
Okay, it's tricky. It's tricky because obviously I only know about law. I can only also sell law to you. So I mean, yeah, I would think do what most, if you really want to do a history degree and you think that would be the most interesting degree to you, you think you would do the best at history, apply for history, because it's great. In the UK, there is this law conversion pathway. You don't need to do an undergraduate law degree to be a lawyer. Having said that, obviously a law degree helps you if you want to be a lawyer or go to the bar. These are two things you can do after. It shortens the practicing course that you need to do after university. I personally, as I said, I'm going to sell law. I would sell law to you. I think it's I think it makes you a better lawyer to have an undergraduate law degree. I think it's a very interesting course in that, as you'll see from the lecture I give this afternoon, history is kind of embedded in law. So if you want to do law, politics, history, it's all very connected. But yeah, I mean, it's really about how you want to spend your undergraduate degree.
Yeah, thank you. James, are the interviews going to be in person or online next year? There's the question.
Yeah, the short answer is we haven't made a final decision yet. So the colleges, the faculties are still consulting, but we will very, very shortly have an answer for you. And the same is true at Oxford as well.
Yeah, great. Are there any subjects that you particularly look for? I think either of you could answer this. Maybe start with Matilda. So people have asked about it in terms of A levels and also IB higher levels.
No, not at all.
Nice, easy answer.
Well, yeah, sorry. I mean,
yeah,
exactly.
James and
I have a different view personally.
No, I would agree.
Yeah, especially I often get asked, do I need to do law A level? Absolutely not. Yeah.
Good. I'm trying to pick out other ones that we haven't covered yet. And I would say there's no advantage of doing IB or A levels. We view those completely equally, because that's a similar question that's coming up quite a lot as well. How long is a law interview typically, Matilda?
About 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Not including the reading time you get beforehand.
Yeah. And I'm just see whether we've got any last questions we kind of haven't covered, at least in part. Somebody just asked you, Matilda, why did you do law over history or another humanities subject personally?
Oh, personally, I think it was important to me. I mean, I did my undergraduate degree in Australia, so things are a little bit different. We don't have a law conversion course. So to be a lawyer, you need a law degree. But practically, I did want a degree that led to a very specific job after. I think I was worried I would be more lost if I did history or politics. And I should say I also do have a degree in arts. So again, Australia is a bit different in that you can do 2 undergraduate degrees. So I kind of had best of both worlds in a sense. But yeah, very much that kind of did persuade me. And I think, I mean, more generally, I wanted to understand the world. I wanted to kind of understand, you know, day-to-day interact. You know, you go into a shop, that's a legal transaction. You trespass, you go into someone's garden, that's the law applies to you. You know, I mean, I think it's a wonderful degree to really understand the world you're living in. And as I said before, it has, to me at least, and I really am projecting here, it has all the kind of benefits of history and politics to me.
Yeah, thank you. And then I'm going to make this the last question before we move on to your talk.
So the historian doesn't get the rebuttal. Classic.
Yeah, I'm looking at
Sorry,
James.
Did you want to add anything, James, from a different perspective?
All I would say, I think, is there is a difference between the study of law and the practice of law. And I would just say, make sure if you're going to apply to Cambridge or Oxford for law, that you are really enthusiastic about the study of law, because ultimately everyone who applies is bright across every subject. Everyone is bright, and often you are ending up on trying to find the people who are the most enthusiastic about this. And it's those who really want to study it and not just practice it that tend to be, I think, be the ones who are more likely to be made an offer. So
And that's a really good point, actually. Yeah. Yes. Last question is it okay if you're nervous in your interviews? Do you get penalised for being very nervous in your interview? And we'll end on that one.
Interviews are nerve-wracking. I mean, I find interviews still nerve-wracking. You're not penalised at all. We don't do kind of a penalty system. It's really just a chat to understand who you are and why you want to come to Cambridge and study law.